takes a lot of time. Sometimes people do forget too that during the interviews, like it is your chance to sort of humbly brag about yourself when you're interviewing. Make sure that you have a few stories or examples in your back pocket that you can use during the interview to demonstrate that you are who you say you are, that you can do what you say you can do. Hiring somebody who's worked at like a bunch of large companies for them to then go to a startup, like that may not be a good fit for either side, because a startup, you're going to be wearing several different hats. It's going to be a lot of hunting, less farming, especially in the beginning. Just bringing in somebody sometimes with no experience that has the right attitude and just will do whatever it takes, like those can be some of the best hires versus somebody who has super impressive resume, but maybe they're stuck in their old ways and, you know, they think they know everything. Most people want to have some sort of flexibility because we got used to that during COVID and we saw that it kind of gave us our life back. I think if a company wants to attract top talent, that is something that they should offer. At least a day or two remote flex is huge. Are they who they say they are? Candidates are also interviewing managers to see if it's an environment they want to work in.
So, Megan, thank you for coming on our podcast. And as I understand, you are involved in hiring and things related to talent. What is one thing that people underestimate about hiring people to work with them at a company?
Well, a lot of times the skill set isn't everything. Many times there's other things like core values that need to align, expectations, and just some people love this, some people hate it, but just being an overall culture fit on both ends, right? Not just the manager side, but also the candidate side. Like everybody should feel good about it.
I agree. Values are really important. But what about people? Like, how do you tell if someone's being honest? Like, they're not just telling you what they think you want to hear in terms of aligning with your values?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Yeah. I mean, I feel like we're like, I don't know, being a recruiter is, there's so much psychology to it, and you pick up on certain cues and the way people answer questions. I think the way you know someone's being sincere is when they have like an example or a story to back up their answers, whether it be to back up their skill set or something that they just feel, you know, passionate about.
This is one of the things I'm really interested in, because one of the areas of coaching that I work in is in interview coaching. So I do sales coaching and interview coaching. And what I've noticed, and I'm sure you see this all the time in what you do, sometimes somebody can have a brilliant resume, their experience is great, they know loads, but they can't articulate it very well. They can't communicate it very well. You can have other people that are very good at communicating. Blagging, we call it in the UK. I don't know if that's a thing in the States, but they can kind of fake their way through it because they're very charming and they're kind of making it up, like lots of politicians say. But they don't actually necessarily know what they're talking about. So how would you say that people can figure out that this person that's communicating very clearly, articulating well, does actually know what they're talking about? What are the cues or clues they can look for?
Yeah, that's such a good point. Again, you know, having some actual um, real life stories and experiences to be able to bring up in conversation to back up their answers. I mean, that's how I would coach a candidate too, is, you know, when you're interviewing, make sure that you have a few stories or examples in your back pocket that you can use during the interview to demonstrate that you are who you say you are, that you can do what you say you can do. I mean, I have so many things I could add to what you just said too. Like, as far as the resume goes, I've talked to candidates over the years who are like, oh, I just put that on my resume because like I knew that would help get through, you know, whatever filter, and managers like to see that. But then they're like asked about it and they can't speak to it. And that can be embarrassing. I'm thinking of another situation that happened recently too, where somebody basically had that they were, let's just say that they were like, you know, without giving away too many details, like, you know, ranked at a certain number in their company, and they were coached by a resume writer to just write that you were like a like number one top producer in your company. It was like sort of like a half truth, because at one point they were like 3 years ago, and while they're still a top producer now, they're not what was put in writing. It's not necessarily true, and so they got a little stumped when they started to be asked about that during interviews.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of, I can see why people do it, but ultimately it's stick to what's true, be honest. Of course, we can always exaggerate things sometimes or underplay things sometimes too, but it's keeping that honesty as a key theme.
Yeah, and that's a good point too about underplaying. I was just gonna add, sorry, David, just one quick thing is that sometimes people do forget too that during the interviews, like it is your chance to sort of to humbly brag about yourself, right? So like also don't leave things out that you think would help you get the job and increase your chances.
That's interesting because with resumes, I've seen it go the other way, where you can sometimes put too much on a resume and you need to focus and like trim back and have it be like very concise if you're applying for a particular role. But I guess with the interview, it's more of a compliment to the page of a resume. I wanted to ask you, Megan, about, I mean, let's steelman the case for your profession. Why why would I want to hire you instead? Because it looks like on paper I could just do this myself. Why would I hire, an expert?
Yeah, I think it's the same reason as why you'd want to hire somebody to clean your house or hire somebody to change the oil in your car, all those types of things. Is it something you could learn to do? Yes, but is it something you necessarily want to spend all of your time on? Probably not. Like, is that going to help really move the needle for your role or for your organization's role, especially if you're a founder of a smaller company who's trying to grow and scale? Hiring takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I agree with you, by the way. It's one of those things that I tried to do myself in the beginning, and it is so much work trying to just make the posting, screen the candidates at the different levels, and then get it all wrong in the end, and then realize that you don't even know who you are. And the business can change, especially because you're dealing, you know, with startups. It's even a large enterprise is going to be changing in some capacity, but at a startup, it's almost like multiple personalities. Like one day you're focusing on this thing, the next you have like this fire to put out. So I think it's crucial. And I'm curious, given your experience, what are some traits that you see consistently in high performing go to market hires that most founders overlook?
Somebody that, well, I think somebody who's active on LinkedIn just says a whole lot, and I know that there's conflicting opinions on that too from a leadership standpoint. But I think that somebody who is active on LinkedIn, that's like free PR for you and your company. It shows that they care about their brand, and they're also going to help promote your company's brand, which goes a long way. So I think that's one thing that's super, super undervalued. Another thing too is when it comes to, especially again, hiring in like the startup space, it takes a bit of a different skill set, to your point. Like, not always, but hiring somebody who's worked at like a bunch of large companies for their entire career, for them to then go to a startup, like unless that's purposely what they're trying to do, that may not be a good fit for anybody, for either side. Because a startup, you're going to be wearing several different hats. It's going to be a lot of hunting, less farming, especially in the beginning, just very different.
I worked with a startup for about 3 years as they went from idea stage through to 200 plus employees. It was great to be part of that. I worked with them externally as a sales coach. And what I found really interesting is a lot of their best hires were people who had never had a job before. It was their first job outside of university, and they were hungry and they were curious and they were kind of fine to try anything. Versus when they got a bit bigger and they started to hire people, some people that had more extensive backgrounds, more experience, that actually really struggled in that world. So I wonder if the greenness of somebody is also a great go-to-market hiring strategy.
I've seen the same thing. Yeah. I've seen people come in without, and even in tech, even before I was doing what I was doing now, I spent many years in tech recruiting, and same exact thing. I mean, just bringing in somebody sometimes with no experience that has the right attitude and just will do whatever it takes. Like, those can be some of the best hires versus somebody who has super impressive resume, but maybe they're stuck in their old ways and, they think they know everything.
In your one-to-one sessions, what are the most common quick wins or changes that instantly improve results?
On the talent side, the quick wins are, honestly, sometimes it's just me giving them a confidence boost and making them feel seen. So, especially in this market right now, a lot of people are applying for jobs and sending their resumes off and not getting much feedback. So, I think even just confirm, like kind of telling them like that's the same exact thing I am seeing also, makes them feel seen and heard, and gives them a little bit more hope. On the hiring manager side, the biggest thing is always just getting them to move at a good pace, and also getting them to realize their selling points. Like, a lot of companies and hiring managers I meet with don't necessarily realize as they're talking to me, like they're listing off a whole bunch of really important selling points that they should be bringing up in conversation with prospective hires.
Really quickly, Megan, what might some of those be?
Yeah, some of them are like ones that you wouldn't necessarily think of right away. Like the other day, I was just talking to somebody who was talking about how his marketing team does such a great job on their LinkedIn business account, and I looked at it afterwards too, and he was right. Um, promoting like just like staff events. Just if I when I went through, there was a bunch of pictures of everybody getting together out at events, sort of just like demonstrating, like showing that they are who they say they are, that they do have a very good team environment, at least according to their LinkedIn. And then, equity is a really big one that sometimes people just forget to talk about. Also, a lot of startups don't necessarily have like customer success teams or account management teams yet. They're just not set up to do that. So what happens is their business development or their account executives really end up taking on that side of the business too. And I mean, if it's a good startup, they know that like what these account executives want to hear then is that they're going to get reoccurring revenue from managing those accounts. That's a big one.
I guess it's kind of the reverse of what we were saying about candidates, right? So candidates can fake stuff, put things on their resume, be charming, but not necessarily back it up. And I would assume the other way around, where companies can say, we have a great team culture and we reward well, or whatever they say. But then it's actually prove that, back it up, put it out into the world, share that with candidates so that they know that you're not just saying that, you mean it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can go the other way too, right? Like if they're saying that, all these great things about the company and themselves, but it takes them, weeks to set up interviews, weeks to get back to people. I mean, that also could be a reflection of what it's like to work at the company. Like, are they who they say they are? If candidates are also interviewing managers to see if it's an environment they want to work in.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to hiring generally, we know it's a very expensive thing to hire the wrong person or to have a gap in a role for a long time. Do you have any specific figures you can share? When we say it's expensive, how expensive? How much does it cost to have a bad hire in a go to market hiring decision?
Ooh, that's such a good question. I'm not really a math person, so I don't think I have absolute figures, but not even looking at the financial investment, just the time alone spent to hire somebody to do the onboarding, to train them, and then to have them potentially in front of your clients or potential clients. If they're not doing a great job and they're causing you to lose clients, like there's a lot at stake for making a bad hire.
Well, it's so connected. That's a great way you illustrated that, Megan. Um, Becky's well versed in sales, and you got your top of funnel, your mid funnel, then your close, and the numbers can be pretty staggering. And the cost to get in front of people and then convince them that you're the right one to solve that pain point, if there is in fact a fit there, like a need and a match, and then to have like the wrong candidate in front of them would just be devastating. It's like not having the right wedding cake on the wedding day or something. It's like I'm making a joke, but maybe not. Yeah, it's costly. I'm curious with your role. You're in it by choice. What is it that you love about what you do?
I love helping people. Well, two sides. I love helping people land jobs. Obviously, that part is very rewarding. There's a lot of work behind it, but when you find, like I just had one recently, when the person getting the job is equally excited as the manager that's hoping that they'll accept the job, like that's such like a feel good experience. And on the hiring manager side, I love when I'm able to help people make their hiring process more efficient. I just think it's something that people don't always think about as like a responsibility as a leader, but it really is. So like it makes my day when somebody sends me a message and says like, yeah, I never thought of it that way, or appreciate all the content you're putting out on LinkedIn. Just to know that I'm making like a little bit of a difference goes a long way.
How do you advance in your expertise? Like, are there books? Are there conferences? Are there some mentors that you work with? I'm curious. How do you pursue excellence in your field?
I'm a big reader, which is funny. Like if you ask me in like, I don't know, high school, I'd be like, oh, I never read books. But now I love them. I read a lot of books that, outside of recruiting, just in general, like business books that are very helpful, and psychology books. Again, there's like a lot of psychology behind recruiting, and I think sales in general. And then I'm connected with some very impressive, accomplished like recruiters that I've learned a lot from. And that's another interesting point too. Ever since leaving my corporate job, I've created this network of people like me who are like small recruiting shops, but there's just so much support out there, that I would have never imagined. You always kind of think like, oh, competition in sales, but there's such a great like network of just recruiters willing to support each other and learn from each other, which has been very helpful.
That's nice. So it's very like grow the pie, not zero sum.
Yeah, like we're all in it together. Like, there's enough business for all of us to go around type of a mindset, which I really appreciate.
And you mentioned about your corporate job, and you were telling us before as we were chatting that you made that decision to leap into kind of being out there on your own. What was I'm sure it's a series of things, but what was maybe a key turning point that made you want to make that jump? And also maybe some of the struggles you experienced doing that and how you dealt with that as well.
I I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I started my entrepreneur journey like maybe like 10 years ago. I decided I wanted to run my own personal training business, which started to sort of take off and get attention, but I had some personal things going on, and I should have never quit what I was doing then. I mean, that wasn't an excuse, but everything happens for a reason, right? So I ended up putting a hold on that. I got into recruiting, and I stuck with it for 7 years. Both on the recruiting side and on the business development side, bringing in companies that needed help with hiring. And last year, I really started to get this pull, like the time was right to make the leap. I didn't know exactly what it was going to be. And then I just started doing like a lot of research, honestly, just having conversations with people to see if this is something that I thought I could do, if I was going to be able to get business on my own. And then I decided to make the leap in November. I left my job, started my company officially launched in January, according to LinkedIn, I think, but I really started in November. And it's been a lot of fun. It was definitely the challenge that I needed. Of course, again, yeah, like I just said, there's challenges. Like you never know what you're going to get. Every day is different. And I pretty much wear all the hats right now, which is the next thing I'm going to be focusing on, is at least outsourcing a little bit, even if it's just part time to get some help.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think for so many people, they might have a desire to do something outside of their corporate 9 to 5, but it's taking that risk, I guess. It's making that leap that's a big blocker for a lot of people. And I guess it sounds like you did a lot of things to make sure you were ready, you were prepared.
Yeah, I should have covered that. So I did do a lot of things, made sure you want to make sure that you have your finances in order and you have a little bit of support. So I made sure I had like 6 months to a year's worth of um, support that I could rely on. But yeah, I mean, it's nerve wracking. Like it's one of the scariest things I think I've ever done. I will never forget making this jump. Like even the first few months before I had started closing deals on my own and getting my own business, like were very scary. Like you never know, but I had to keep like sticking with it. Now that I'm 6 months in, I feel not to say, everything's perfect, but I do feel like I'm a bit more confident than I was maybe in the first 3 months. And now to see, money flowing in and I'm able to pay my bills, not just out of my savings account. That's a good feeling, but it is a lot. And I think you just need to have the right resources, network, and even some communities I've been a part of that have been super helpful too.
Hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Can't do it all on our own, I guess. We need people around us.
That's become very apparent as I go further and further in my entrepreneur journey, that just how much uh, is like you can't do it on your own. It's maybe some people would disagree, but I've found it's really a team effort. They say it like takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a village to do anything. And sometimes just because of space on a magazine page or whatever, there's like one person, but like behind that one person is like a bunch of people. a nutritionist, a project manager, this or that. So yeah, that's good to hear that you're on the up and up. I'm curious, Megan, with founders, small business owners, is there a difference? Like, are there some changes between a founder with a team, let's say under 5 doing hiring versus a founder with a team of 20 doing hiring? And what are some of the changes that they might want to just be aware of that they might go through in their hiring process?
Well, founder with a team of 5, that's going to be a very specific hire that they need to make. I mean, that's really going to be somebody that probably needs to wear a lot of hats. That founder too is really going to need to think about their selling points too, because if I had to guess, they're probably not going to be able to offer a super big salary, which is okay. Not everybody, is that's not everybody's number one thing is salary, but being mindful of their selling points, putting themselves in the candidate's shoes, like why would this person want to work here? And they also definitely would need to make sure that the candidates' goals are aligned with the founders' goals for their companies. Because if they're not, I just think it'll end up being a disaster. I was going to say for the 20-person startup, sort of the same thing. Maybe not as much. It sounds like they'd probably be a little bit more established than the 5-person startup, but still, like that's probably one of those situations where if I had to guess, they probably don't have a customer success team yet. This is probably going to be, I'm just thinking like a sales hire. This is probably going to be somebody that's doing the business development, acting as the AE, and also acting as the account manager. So just again, putting themselves in that person's shoes. What's going to make this offer really exciting? Maybe they can't offer the biggest base salary, but they can offer a decent commission plan and that reoccurring revenue for doing the account management.
Regarding the like job hunting process, job applications, resumes, submissions, all that stuff, do you think that is a worthwhile model, or do you think there's room for improvement?
I think there's so many holes. I mean, I think that's a huge problem going on right now. Luckily, I don't have to deal with that myself really because when I'm working on a role, I don't need to submit the candidate's resume through anything. I can just send them to the manager that I'm working with. But I talk to so many candidates about their searches in general, and that is a huge point of frustration is submitting resumes and hearing crickets, or just getting like an automated message back from the company. And some of these candidates I'm working with are like fantastic just because of the state of the market right now. I can't even believe that they're available. And when I look at these job postings, some of them I'm just like, this was just a huge mess. Like you guys would totally want to interview this person if you weren't using such a robotic process and actually took a look at the resume.
I was just going to say, it must be one of those things with AI, even more so now, right? To have like, must have this word in, for example, I don't know, or must fit this certain type of criteria, that if a human were to read that, they would have a different impression, or they would be able to pull some nuance out of it that AI just couldn't yet, I guess.
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. I do have somebody who's really great in my network that does a really great job at resume writing, and the biggest piece of his business is really what you just said, making it so candidates have a greater chance of getting their resume through those types of systems. So I think a service like that is awesome, but also just like putting it back on the hiring manager, like is that really like the process that you like is that really going to get you the best talent by making it like Fort Knox to get a good to get a resume into your system? I don't know. I understand too that because the market's so um, open right now from a candidate perspective, that there's a bunch of people out there just hitting apply apply apply. So somebody will post a job and get like 150 applications in one day.
Did you see I don't know if it's like a meme or something, but there was this application that said typing speed like 10,000 words a minute, hours available 24 hours a day, cost like 30 cents an hour or something like that. And I was like, great, you're hired. Like, and it's like, that's basically agents, like AI agents, and that's just like the first wave of agents. Like it's only going to get, you know, but so I'm curious, Megan, if you could be vulnerable. I don't. Maybe the answer is no. But have you ever gotten it wrong, like as a recruiter? And if so, what was the learning? Like, what did you learn?
Oh my gosh, I've gotten it wrong so many times. I think earlier in my recruiting career, there was times where I was excited about somebody being a potential for the job that I almost wanted it more than they did. And now and that never turns out well. Like, it doesn't turn out well for me. It doesn't turn out well for the company hiring or the candidate. Like, if they're not excited about it, it's not going to last. In recruiting, typically we get paid a fee on the candidate's salary, and usually there's some sort of guarantee. But like after like if they don't work out within like the first 90 days, we usually have to pay it back. So like it just doesn't really, it's not beneficial to try to push somebody into a job who doesn't actually want it. So my biggest thing when I'm chatting with candidates, especially, is like I always have that conversation with them, especially at the end. Like, look, if this is something that you don't want, like, please don't feel pressured by me to take it. Like, I don't want you, because they know too. Like, that's how I make my money. But like, I just don't, that doesn't work out well for anybody. And I always remind them of that. Like, you need to do what is best for you. I would never want you to take a job and then either back out or, realize a couple months in that it's not the job for you.
There's a couple of threads that I'm going to try to weave into not chaos. So I'm in a executive coaching program right now, and they talk about being present so that you can help your client become what they want for themselves. Important, that last part. And I think sometimes in my life anyway, professionally, let's say, I think that I assume rather that people have the same definitions that I have, and that they're therefore going to respond or think or project the same way that I am. So I might think like, hey, let's just lay our cards on the table. Let's be real honest or transparent. That might mean different things to different people. And I may not be as transparent as I think I am. I might think that I am, but there's other things I'm completely blind to. Or like I might say something that has a totally different kind of like knock-on effect than I'm like aware of. And this is part of like the magic of life, is that it's constantly like you're learning and growing, but also it can be kind of chaotic. It's like, oh, that didn't turn out. So many times, like whatever my expectation is, it's like the opposite. It's like, oh, this meeting's going to go really well. And like, there's like some surprise and it maybe doesn't go as well as anticipated. And like another time when it's like, oh, this is probably not going to go that well. And it's like, great. And I'm just like, um, it's really confusing. And so when you're talking about finding this match, I mean, it's not quite like a marriage, let's say, but it's not that far off. You're talking about high stakes partnerships here, a lot of things on the line, material and otherwise. And you are kind of crucial in that, at least for a time. Um, does that is that stressful for you, or have you kind of got over that?
There's always moments of stress. I think in the beginning it was definitely a lot more stressful. I really like what you said too about like realizing that your values are many times different than other people's too. So again, going back to the candidate side, like I had to get it out of my head that just because, you know, maybe a company is offering a salary that wouldn't be exciting to me, or like their benefits package stinks, like that something that might be important to me is not important to somebody else, obviously, to a certain extent. Like if the whole package just stinks, I got to be honest with them and just say like, look, no, probably nobody is going to want this. But my point is that there might be things in there that are super interesting to somebody that are not interesting to me, and vice versa. So I have to be able to separate those two things.
I'm curious, what is the professional vernacular around your employment package stinks?
I don't know. I just say it stinks. Is that bad? No, I'm just kidding. I just say, I just put it back on them, really, on the managers. Like, what I kind of get them thinking, like, what can we use as a selling point? You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, again, not everything's going to align perfectly, especially when you're a startup. There's only so many things that you can afford to offer. But
I wonder when you were saying that about the 5-person startup, that they might not have the budget maybe for bigger salaries. I was thinking about what could be other things that they offer, and I guess maybe flexible working, working from home, those kind of things that don't necessarily cost them in terms of financial resource. Do you find that? Is it the case that startups tend to offer more of that kind of thing to offset what the salary might be? And are you finding, as we seem to be going back towards hybrid or in person working, is that matching up with what candidates want from work?
I think most everybody wants some remote flexibility. Not everybody needs to be working from home 100%, but most people want to have some sort of flexibility because we got used to that during COVID, and we saw that it kind of gave us our life back. Not that again we need to be working from home every day, but I think if a company wants to attract top talent, that is something that they should offer. At least a day or two remote flex is huge. And then going back to your question about the startup, many times too, depending on how small the startup is, I found that they'll offer somebody equity in the company, so that can be really exciting for somebody too who gets that. Again, they have to get it though. Like, I recently placed somebody at a company who's going to be moving into a manager role there. They're a small startup, and he's excited about the whole thing. Like, I think the salary was okay, but the equity piece is huge. He knows too, he's on the same page as the founder, that their plan is to grow this thing and then sell it, and he's on board with that. That might scare some people away. Like, they might say, oh, I don't want to be part of that, but for him, he's like, this is awesome. I know I'm going to be part of this big thing. We're going to scale it, we're going to sell it, and I have equity, so perfect. But it all depends, again, on the candidate, their values, their goals, and what they want.
Yeah, and the match between the two.
Yeah, it has to align.
My perspective on remote versus in-person work has become more nuanced. At first, I thought it was like just black and white, obviously better because commutes are pointless. And if you're thinking like the average person, I think in the developed urban area commutes like an hour each way. That's like 10 hours minimum a week if you're working 5-day weeks. And that's usually not like Buddhist, like Bali kind of massage level energy when you're doing your commute either. So it's like you wonder like the knock-on effects after decades of that. Are you your best when you're in the office or back at home with your family? And so it can have this like vicious cycle element to it as well. Um, and then as the business owner, I'm like, how do I know that they're like working 100% or they're not just like telling me kind of what I want to hear? And then it's like, I need to kind of focus on things that I need to do. And like trust is so important. I think if you gave me like if I had to choose 5 words for life, trust would definitely be one of those words. Love, of course, is another one. But I think like if you don't have trust in business, you don't have anything because you can't like micromanage. You can't, it's just not worth it. Even if you try to like, and so I think it's more a matter of like understanding A, there's a North Star, and B, understanding that it's moving. And so you need to kind of have flexible strategies to be able to, okay, so this is our goal. What are your goals, Megan? Like, how can we like align? How much of that aligns, and how much like will it take to get you a little bit closer to my goal? And then what are our kind of KPIs for that? And then and then have some kind of margin in case you get in an accident, heaven forbid, or sick, or you have a friend's wedding that you have to go to or something. And so there's so many like little layers that you need to kind of consider. But you'll find loopholes everywhere. No system is immune from loopholes. As a fact, I think that's part of progress. Is the loopholes help improve. I talked to someone earlier today about Napoleon. Like, love him or hate him, like things changed as a result. If so going back to that was a whole different tangent, but going back to business. So I've spoken to people, I'll keep it all anonymous, but who are in the office, and they used to like kind of brag joke that they used to watch like Netflix in the office, and they just have like browsers kind of open anytime like the manager went by or whatever, they just flip it over. So being in person isn't necessarily some kind of catch-all for let's say low productivity. And then likewise, people that are remote, like I went back to the vicious cycle thing. Imagine if people were like less stressed and just, they could hop out and like take their kids to school or whatever. And, there's just, you can have hyper performers on either side, I think. And so it's just a matter of kind of being in touch with your environment and looking at your goals, I think, and adjusting when necessary. What are your thoughts with any of that?
I agree with everything you just said, honestly. So there's somebody in my network who they brought them back to her place of employment, brought them all back to office, I think every day of the week now at this point. And they're in the office, they're all there with like their doors shut and everything, and they're still all meeting over Zoom. They're all there together and they're meeting over Zoom in the office. So to that point too, like if you're going to bring people back in the office, make it like worth their while. Like, get FaceTime with each other. Like, that's the whole point, right, of being back in the office. And if you don't trust your employees to do their job, like, that's just, I'm reading this book right now called Buy Back Your Time, and I forget the author. Actually, he's from Canada too. Have you read that book?
I haven't.
He's great. I wish I could remember his name, but you'll find it if you look it up.
Oh, Dan Martell. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I have I'm one connection removed from him.
Oh, perfect. The book is great. I really like it. I mean, I've learned a lot just for myself with how I can outsource and things and get some help. But in the book, he talks about when you hire your team, especially managers, but even just individual contributors, you want to have people that you can put the ownership on them. So like if they come to you with a problem, you can ask the perfect scenario would be you asking them like, well, how are we going to get from A to B, or what's your solution for this? Like put it back on them. Like you want to, does that make sense? You want to build a culture of people who are like that, that you can trust, that you know are going to come to the table with solutions or ideas, versus people that maybe you can't trust and are just going to come to the table with a bunch of problems that they're looking to you to solve.
And understand there's a trade-off with absolutely everything, is my kind of perspective anyway. So when I started, I automatically wanted it to be in my image. I like everything. I want to design the way that I would design it. Everything like, do this way. Cause to me, it was just the most logical thing. But it's exhausting because everything has to come back to you, and that doesn't allow for scaling.
It's a bottleneck.
Yeah, what's a bottleneck for sure, but then there's like knock-on effects too. Like how that's not empowering for the people. And it's yeah, I guess bottleneck will do, but it just limits you in so many ways. But then you let go and it's like, oh no, it looks different, or this is different. But then it allows you to actually do things that you couldn't do before. And that it takes communication. There's no like set and forget, like, woohoo, we got it right, we're good for the next 50 years. Yeah, it takes management, and it takes like communication. Going back to what you said about like the cubicle, or sorry, you didn't say the cubicle, you said in person and Zoom. My head went to the cubicle. Have you ever seen the movie Office Space?
Yes, but I should rewatch it. It's been years.
It's like one of the best movies ever made, I think. It's so fun.
That's the one with the stapler, right?
Yep. Have you seen it, Becky?
No, fill me in. What's it called? Office Space.
Office Space. Yeah, it's about a quarter of a century old now. My goodness. Jennifer Aniston, and but yeah, interesting like office psychology dynamics that we could probably all relate to. And even though that's before the remote work era, there's, it's work. So there's some things to keep in mind. That should be like mandatory viewing, I think, for business.
It should.
You mentioned psychology books you really like, Megan, and you mentioned Dan Martell's book there, Buy Back Your Time. Um, do you have any other like books that like, let's if I know it's hard to say like what's your favorite book, but what's one that comes to mind aside from Buy Back Your Time that that you like, or that was powerful for you?
The Power of One More by Ed Milet. That's a really great book that everybody could learn something from. And listening to Ed in general, like his podcasts and things. I don't know if you know him. I'm a big fan, big fan of his work. Um, yeah, the whole point of that book is basically just like when you feel like giving up, just give it one more shot, one more try, and like chances are once you do that one more try, you're going to want to keep going. But if you think about it like that, just okay, I only have to do this one more time, then I can decide if I want to keep going or not.
Yeah, I like that. Never give up, never surrender. Um, well, Megan, it was a pleasure chatting with you today. Is there anything that we didn't talk about with hiring or talent, or anything that you feel we would be remiss that we should mention?
One more thing, just because it's Friday, even though I don't know when this will be published, I'm not sure, maybe not on a Friday, but on Fridays, the best thing a leader can do is if they've had any interviews during the week, is to go back through, decide who's a fit potentially, who is not a fit at all, like who's a maybe, and the people that are not a fit, cut them loose before the weekend, like free up some mental space for them, because these poor people are going to be thinking all weekend long, am I getting the job, am I not? Let them focus on other things and just let them down as soon as you can. And then for the strong options or the maybes, send them a note or do something to keep them engaged in the process, to keep them excited, especially if they have other opportunities on their plate, which they probably do. It's a good way to keep the momentum going.
Great advice. And where can people follow you? Where would you like to direct them?
They can follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. I'm trying to get more active on Instagram too. I think I have a Twitter account. I'm definitely not like you on there, David. I think I have like 10 followers. So LinkedIn, I would say, or Instagram.
Great. We'll put the links in the show notes. Well, thanks again. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks for having me.